So we're getting ready today to actually pot up some seeds and get some seedlings growing. It's February 1st in Dallas, and as you can see, of course, we have a greenhouse, but we also have a spare bedroom in our house that we've kind of turned into a grow room. One of the things that we've noticed, this is like Miracle-Gro potting mix that we've got here, and we've got another one over here, near source indoor and outdoor potting mix. But we've noticed that this stuff anymore, it really comes, and it's not a bad thing. It's just for our immediate use. It has a lot of chunks of bark and sticks and things like that, which again is fine. You just let it break down in there and keep it. But for our actual seed or seedling starting mix, we want it to be as fine as possible. So I found a couple of screens that I'm going to try on Amazon, and there's a fine one and then one that's more coarse. They're pretty heavy duty for sifting the larger particles out of the mix. I'm going to give that a try. And I like these as well because they also fit on the top of a 5-gallon bucket. So we're going to give it a try and see how it works out for sifting some of the larger particles out of our potting mix. Now, the stuff that we sift out, I'm not just going to chunk that. I'm going to either put that back into the compost bin that we have going year-round, or we'll use it for something else. Okay, we've just got a plastic bin and we've got our bag of potting mix up here, and I'm just going to go ahead and open it for now and just let it go straight into this bin because we want to, just inspect it first before we even try to sift it with our screens. It may be that it doesn't even need it, but I'm just going to put it in here so we can, kind of inspect it and work with it for now. It's going to be pretty wet because these were also sitting out in the rainstorm that we had here the other day. So I don't know if you can see here, but this is kind of what I'm talking about, and it's not necessarily, like I said, a bad thing, but there will be a lot of sticks and things like that in this mix that we may not want in our potting soil, or in our potting, or our seedling mix, I guess I should say. And all this is, again, it's just a bag of potting mix, Miracle-Gro brand. They've got tons of different brands that you can use. Just something that we picked up at the local hardware store, I think. Okay, we've got all of our potting mix out of the bag and in this plastic container, but again, you can see there's really large chunks of sticks and things like that in here that we don't want in our seed mix when we make it. And this one really needs to dry out a little bit before it's going to be easier to strain it. It's not horrible though as far as the sticks. I've gotten them before. We've tried getting the stuff at Costco and a couple of other places that they have, and it's not horrible, but again, depending on when you get it, it'll have a lot of sticks and things like that in it that really hinder. Like there's a pretty good sized stick. It can really hinder starting seeds if you're trying to start your own plants from seeds, which we experimented around with last year and had some really good success. And it's a great way to save some money, if you will. And again, this doesn't look bad, so we're probably going to just give it a try. But there's random sticks and chunks of wood in it that'll be fine to go in our compost bin and let it continue to break down, but we just don't want it in our seed starting mix. And all I'm doing now is just trying to aerate this a little bit and go ahead and break it up some and let it get some air in there, because even though these bags are they're plastic bags that it comes in, they have little weep holes in them, or little air holes in them. So I again left this one sitting out in the rain the other day, so it did get quite a bit of moisture in it, and I'm just trying to let it dry out a little bit so we can work with it. Now, I don't necessarily want it real dry. There's certainly nothing wrong with a little bit of moisture in here, but I'm just trying to get this to where it's a little easier for me to work with when I'm ready to actually try to screen it with my screens. So you saw us dump our Miracle-Gro potting mix into this large container, and we're trying to let it dry out a little bit because it's so compact from the water. It's still pretty wet, and you can see that here. But what I'm going to try is, again, we have these screens that I've talked about a little bit already, and I'm going to take the one that's coarse, and I have a 5-gallon bucket. We have one of these tidy trays that we got from, I think it was gardencenter.com or something like that, but I'll put the link in the description. And it's really made to where you can set your your potting trays in the front of them and have your soil or your potting mix in the back, and then easily fill your trays is what it's really designed for. So we got one of these, and we're going to give that a try this year. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take our 5-gallon bucket, and in this case, this one happens to be Firehouse Subs. It's a place to get sub sandwiches in our local area here in Dallas that we really like, because the proceeds from them selling these, and they're $3 for a 5-gallon bucket, and it includes a lid, which is way cheaper than you can go to the big box stores and get a 5-gallon bucket. But this one had a crack in the bottom of it, and we've also used it for other things. But what I did, and there's some footage of that, I just cut the bottom off of it because I wanted to be able to set it in my tray, take my screen and put it right on top of the bucket like that. And I want the sifted material that we're going to sift or screen to fall into my tray ready for use.
Still use that too for something.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I wanted. So we're just going to get some of our mix here that's got the bark and everything in it that hasn't been screened or sifted yet, and put it in here and start working it. And what we're trying to do, again, like I pointed out in the mix a while ago, was get some of these bigger pieces of bark out of the mix. And you just kind of have to keep working it. So really, this one, like I mentioned, is too damp, too moist. It's got too much water. It would work a lot easier and be a lot faster if it wasn't so wet. And you don't even really have to use this 5-gallon bucket process. You can just take it and shake it and mix it around and let the stuff fall out. And you can see how it's falling out. But again, it's a slow process. Big pieces of bark and stuff like that, we really don't want that in our seed starting mix. It's okay to keep this, and we will keep all of this and mix it back into our compost, or maybe even use it for filler in the bottom of big pots that we like to do and put around our property, because it's good. It's going to break down and it'll put nutrients and things like that back into our soil. So we really want to keep those. We're not throwing it out or anything. Look at the big piece of bark there. But we just keep going. Keep stirring, keep mixing. And again, if this was drier, not so much water, moisture, this process would go a lot faster. Anybody ever panned for gold or anything like that, or or do one of those digs on a site where they're digging up old bones or something like that? I can think something like this might be. But you can start to see how many large chunks of bark and things like that are in this, what they call potting mix. And that's fine. We want that in our soil. We don't get rid of it, but we don't necessarily want it in our seed starting mix because it hinders the growth of the new seeds, or it can. But that'll give you a pretty good idea of what is left after this has been screened. Huge pieces of bark. And then you can see here kind of what's left after the screening process, and see how good that's going to be for seed starting. And then when we have a batch ready, we just take it. We've got another plastic bin to the side, and I just take it and dump it right in there. till we get enough to take care of potting up all of our seeds for today. So once we're done screening our product that we don't want in our seed mix, I'm just going to take that, and we've got an extra bucket sitting around, and dump it all in a bucket, because again, we're going to use this or put it back in the mix. I may add that to my compost and let it break down and use it later, but you can see how big the pieces of bark and stuff like that was in this potting mix that we don't want in our seed mix. And if I wanted to go finer, I could use yet my finer screen, but again, because this mix today is so damp, it's not screening that well, and that's fine. And you'll notice too, we use a lot of different tools and things like that, just some scoops to scoop with. One thing that we found handy is just an old metal dustpan that I had kicking around the garage, and we weren't using it, so we use it to move soil with and things like that. So it's just handy, you know, to use what you've got if you have it, and make it fun. Keep it simple. So what we're doing here is we're screening some using the same screen that's a lot drier, so it's a lot easier to screen with this screen. But what this is, and you can see it has a lot of small roots in it, we like to recycle our potting mix where we can from our large pots and things like that. So we have a couple of containers like this just sitting around that I'll kind of clean out when we empty out the pots, and we'll put the soil into here. But it has too much big stuff in it to use for potting mix. So we're trying to utilize recycling, if you will, and get some of this again for potting mix. And it may even be that we're going to mix some of this in with the new stuff, and we may add some other stuff to the soil like the Coco Coir, or we might even mix in some perlite. But you can see here how much like little fine roots and chunks of bark and stuff like that are in here, and it's really screening a lot easier using the screens. And you can see here how fine that is, and that's really what we want for our seed starting mix, because when you put those seeds in, whether they're top sown seeds or, you know, actually put down in the mix, an 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, or whatever they require, you don't want those seeds competing with anything else like chunks of bark or anything like that in the soil to grow. You want them to have every opportunity that they can to grow, and this is really going to be awesome, I think. And again, save your old stuff, let it break down further. You can put it back in the compost bin and mix it, let it break down, and utilize, you know, using it over again. It's just that easy. So I got some of these Coco Coir mix bricks, and we're going to give this a try to kind of make some of our own potting soil this year. And these come in a brick. As you can see, this package has 3 bricks, but I think you can get this stuff in different size compressed bricks. And from what I understand it, these are the shells from coconuts that have been ground up and compacted, and you get them and soak them in water and then go from there for making your potting soil. So we're going to give this a try, and it has the instructions and everything here. And a lot of the big box stores and garden centers and things like that have these now. We ordered these from Ace with some other growing mix that we like to use, but I wanted to give them a try and see how they work. So I got my package cut open, and essentially all these are, they're just a brick, and you can see they're in layers. And what I'm going to do is, we're in the Dallas area, Dallas, Texas, and we had a humongous rain the other day. And as an experiment, I thought, well, I'll just set a bucket out, and I've got an old bucket that we use for garden debris and things like that. So while it was raining, I just set this bucket out and let it catch some rainwater. So I'm just going to take my brick and just put it right in this water and let it soak. And it says on the package, let it soak for 10 to 15 minutes. And then you go through the process of breaking it down and just mixing it up and draining the excess water off. But some people I've seen videos on, and they have larger bricks of these that they're doing. They let them set for 12 to 24 hours. So we're going to be doing some cleanup work in the garden today, and I'm just going to let this one soak, and we'll come back later and check on it and let you see how it's doing. So we're back checking on our block, and you can see it's already expanded about 2 or 3 times the size, the original size of it. So I'm going to give it about 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to come back and stir it around and see how it looks. All right, we're back. You can see it's really expanded, so much so that all of it's not even in the water anymore. I'm sure it's still, getting water up in it and everything, but we're going to go ahead and stir it around a little bit. So, yeah, you can see it just literally falling apart in the water. So, it really feels like it's all really good and saturated. But I'm going to go ahead, because we got other garden chores that we're doing today, and just let it soak for a while and keep stirring it. Okay, so we've got our screened potting mixture, seed mixture here, if you will. And what we're going to do now is try to bump it up a notch, if you will. And yes, for those of you that are wondering, I did have a wardrobe change, because it's now like 70 degrees instead of 40 out here in Dallas. So I had to lose the flannel shirt and get the stocking hat off, or the toque, and go with my cap. So, but what we've got, you saw us do the bricks of Coco Coir. We've got one sitting over there in the bucket of water, and it's been in here now about, what do you think, 8 hours? And you can see it's really soaked up a lot of the moisture that was in the bucket, and it's really expanded. I mean, it looks like some pretty good stuff, just like it is. But we're going to take some of this and we're going to mix it in with our potting mix, and that will also get our potting mix a little bit of moisture as well. For now, until we see how it is, I'm just going to do about half of that bucket, or what would have been half of one of those bricks when I started. And we're just going to mix that all in. And I believe, from what I understand from seeing some other videos and researching it a little bit, the Coco Coir is really supposed to help your potting mix, your potting soil, whatever, retain a lot of moisture. It's going to help with that, and you just really want to get it all mixed in really well. And what we're also going to do, like I mentioned, is we're going to take some perlite, and we're going to add some of that to our mix as well. I think about that much. And we're going to mix it in. And then, we didn't talk about this morning, but what we could do after we're done putting our seedlings in our pots is our seeds, I'm sorry, not seedlings, they're seeds right now, seedlings later. We could go back and top coat those with some vermiculite. And I think what that does is help some of the moisture content and everything stay in the soil. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yes. We'll talk about that later. So for now, we're just going to keep mixing, because we want to get this all mixed in really good. And I think the perlite is also kind of along the same lines, but it also helps give your soil a little better drainage, so maybe it doesn't compact up as much. And the Coco Coir is going to help retain some of the moisture, but you also don't want this to get, to where it's real compacted, if you will, the soil. You still want there to be able to get some air, and when you do water it, you want some water to be able to get down in there. You don't want it to be so hard and solid, if you will, in the pot that your water, when you water the seedlings or seeds for that matter, the pot that they're in can't absorb anything in there, and that's what the perlite's going to help with. So I think maybe that's looking pretty close. What do you think?
Yeah.
You can actually kind of hear the moisture content in it, and it doesn't really drip or anything. If I really squeeze it hard, you can see some moisture dripping out of it, but I think that's probably going to be okay for what we're trying to do. What do you think?
Yeah.
You can kind of see the little strands in there. I think that was maybe a root, but the little strands of the coconut. Now we're going to take our flat of pots, and I believe these are 2-inch pots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start filling them with our mixture. And if you're worried about getting dirty, it's okay. It'll all wash off. I actually sit at a computer for a living, 8-10 hours a day. But for that matter, my wife and I both love to garden, and it's really kind of therapeutic to me to get out and make mud pies, if you will. And we're just kind of trying to pack it in the pots a little bit because we don't really want any air pockets. Like you can see that one that I just pressed on, it went way down in there. And I'm not trying to make it like rock hard, but I just want to make sure there's not really any like air pockets left in there. If you need to, you can add a little more soil. Just trying to level it out. Looks pretty good so far. And then we're going to take, what did we call it?
A very important stick.
Very important stick. And this is just a piece of scrap lumber that I had laying around. These are just some little wooden stakes. You could, you know, take one of these and use it. And what you're wanting to do is kind of, if you're familiar with doing any like concrete work or anything, it's kind of like you're screeding the top of your surface to kind of smooth it out, and I don't know, kind of makes it look neater or what have you. And you can go, you know, both ways. You can go back and forth this way, and you're not really trying to dig any extra soil out of there, but you're just trying to make it look, I guess the word would be tidy. All right, so how does that look?
That looks good. Looks good.
And there we have it. It's hopefully ready for our seeds.